He forgot my birthday, but remembered every fight. I stayed quiet until the night he handed me a gift I didn't expect and a confession that changed everything. Riley could remember everything I ever said in a fight, not just the big ones. The tiny, offhand comments too, the time I rolled my eyes after a stressful day, the time I said, "Do whatever you want," and didn't mean it. He could recall my exact tone, the way I stood, how long it took me to walk out of the room. He carried those things like evidence, precise, cataloged, but he forgot my birthday last week. Didn't call, didn't text. I came home with my own cake, one of those tiny ones from the corner market, frosting too sweet, meant for one person, but shaped to make you feel like someone else had picked it out. He was on the couch when I walked in, playing some game with his headset on. He looked up, smiled, "Hey," and kept going. Never noticed the box in my hand. I set the cake on the counter, lit one candle, stared at it until it melted down enough to burn the icing. I didn't say a word. The thing is, forgetting happens. People miss things, we're all juggling something, but the math didn't add up. He remembered how I once slammed a door in 2021. How I said he wasn't trying hard enough during a fight in a parking lot. How I left dinner halfway through when he made a joke I didn't think was funny. He remembered the worst of me. But joy? Softness. A date that only existed to celebrate me? Gone, not a trace. That's when it hit me, not all memory is about capacity. Some of it is about value. He remembered what hurt him, not what mattered to me. And I didn't know what to do with that. I didn't cry. That surprised me. I thought thought the candle would melt just enough and I'd fall apart with it. But instead, I sat at the counter with my fork and my little cake and a silence that felt like it had been waiting for weeks to settle in. The candle flickered. I watched it drip into the frosting. When it got too close to the surface, I blew it out. No wish, just breath. The sound of the TV from the other room filled the space. Riley was laughing at something. Not loud, not cruel, just unaware. I took the first bite. It was too sweet, like I remembered. The kind of sugar that coats your mouth but never tastes like anything real. I chewed slowly. No hurry, no ceremony. I could have said something, could have walked in with the cake, held it up like a sad joke, and asked, "Anything look familiar?" I could have made a scene. Guilt tripped him into flowers, into regret, into something. But I didn't. Because I wanted to see what he would do on his own. Spoiler, he did nothing. I put the cake away, covered it with foil, washed my fork, wiped the counter. Then I sat on the couch beside him like it was any other night. He asked how work was. I said fine. And he never asked why there was a candle wick in the sink. Jules caught it right away. She always does. The next morning at work, I walked in pretending. Hair done, eyes not too red, smile set in place. I've had practice. But Jules doesn't buy smiles, she reads posture. "You good?" she asked, not even looking up from her monitor. "Yeah," I said, too fast. She glanced over, tilted her head slightly. "Okay." That's all, no pressing, no dramatic sigh. Just okay, like she'd filed the answer under temporary lie and would wait for the truth to show up on its own. Later, while the office emptied out for lunch, she turned to me again. Quietly, gently. "You don't have to defend someone who keeps forgetting how to show up." That one landed. I didn't say anything. Just stared at my screen like it might rescue me. She didn't need more. It's not that she knew about the birthday. I hadn't told her. Hadn't told anyone. But there's a look we carry when we've bent too far for too long, a dullness behind the eyes, a tired set in the shoulders. The body remembers what the mouth won't say. She stood, grabbed her keys, and said, "You want anything?" I shook my head. She left without waiting. And for the rest of the afternoon, her words stayed with me, not sharp, just steady, like someone quietly handing you a mirror. We were out to dinner, one of those last-minute, no-effort places where we always ended up when neither of us wanted to cook, but both of us wanted to pretend we were doing something together. He ordered his usual, I ordered mine. We barely looked at the menu, that kind of autopilot. Halfway through the meal, he brought it up like it was a funny story. "Remember that fight we had last year? The one after your friend's wedding?" I blinked, "What about it?" He smiled, shaking his head a little. "You got so mad when I left early. You were wearing that green dress, and you were yelling in the Uber, said I was emotionally unavailable and probably always would be." I stared at him. He kept going, laughing under his breath like it was something we both found charming now. You wouldn't even let me touch your arm. I remember thinking, damn, she's really gonna leave me over this. I didn't laugh, because I did remember the dress. And the Uber. And how I had to hold back tears so the driver wouldn't glance at me in the mirror. I remembered the way I had to apologize for needing something I shouldn't have had to ask for. But more than that, I remembered what he didn't, that it was my birthday last week, that he hadn't said a word. He remembered a year-old fight down to the color of my dress, but not a date meant to celebrate me. I sat there chewing slowly, nodding at his story like it was harmless. But inside, something settled, not anger, just clarity. It was always the vase. Every time we talked about that night, the night we screamed more than we spoke, he brought up the vase. You threw it, he'd say, smashed it right against the wall. He was right, I did. But the way he tells it, you'd think the vase was the only thing that broke. We were arguing about something small that had turned into something big. I don't even remember the start of it, just the fatigue in my chest, the feeling that I'd been asking for scraps and he was acting like I was demanding a feast. The vase was near the doorway. A gift from his aunt, I think. I remember picking it up. I remember the cold ceramic in my hand. I didn't throw it at him. I just needed to make a sound that matched what was happening inside me. He left. Didn't say a word. I swept the pieces that night in silence, careful not to cut myself. I sat on the kitchen floor afterward, knees pulled to my chest, crying so softly even the fridge hum felt louder. He came back hours later. Said we needed to reset, said I had a temper. He never asked why I broke it, just remembered that I did. At dinner now, when he brought it up again, casually, like a shared memory, like it was quirky, I nodded slowly. I didn't remind him that I cried alone, that I cleaned it up, that the apology never came, because he didn't forget that night. He just edited it. And in his version, the vase shattered all by itself. Mrs. Barlow caught me in the hallway the next morning. She's lived in the building for years, one of those older neighbors who knows everyone without ever prying. Always has a plant in her hands, always smells faintly like mint and soap. She smiled as I unlocked the mailbox. Was that your birthday last week? She asked, like she already knew. I blinked. Oh, yeah, it was. Well, happy belated. She tucked a grocery flyer under her arm. I thought I saw you with a little cake. I nodded, just a normal day. She gave me a long, knowing look, not nosy, just soft, like she was familiar with the weight of birthdays that go unnoticed. You should have said something. I would have brought you a slice of my lemon bread. I smiled, that would have been the highlight. She chuckled, maybe next year. We said goodbye. I walked back inside, slow, her voice lingering in the stairwell. It wasn't the question that stuck with me. It was how easy it was to lie, just a normal day. I said it like I hadn't cried in the kitchen 2 nights ago, like I hadn't bought my own candle, cleaned my own plate, swallowed my own silence. Mrs. Barlow's question wasn't meant to expose anything, but it did. Kindness has a way of showing you what's missing without ever raising its voice. I ordered the necklace the day after the cake. Simple, silver. Small pendant with a stone that matched nothing in my wardrobe but felt like something I'd pick if no one else got a say. It wasn't expensive. It wasn't sentimental. It was just mine. I didn't wrap it when it arrived. Didn't make a moment of it. I slipped it on while brushing my teeth and never took it off. Not to sleep, not to shower. Not even when I knew he'd notice if he was looking. He wasn't. Riley didn't ask about it. Not once. Not the first day. Not a week later. Not when I wore it to dinner or when it caught the light in the mirror above the dresser we both used. He didn't see it. And maybe that was the most honest part of everything. Not the forgotten birthday. Not the missed dinner plans. But this, a new thing on my body, right under his nose, and no curiosity, no comment, not even a pause. There's a kind of quiet grief in being unseen. Not because you disappeared, but because someone stopped turning their head to notice. So I wore the necklace, not out of spite, out of survival. It was a placeholder, a small reminder. That even if he didn't remember to celebrate me, I could still choose myself, even in small, glinting ways. We weren't fighting. That was the strange part. There was no yelling, no slammed doors, no sharp words hanging in the air. Just silence, days of it, weeks maybe. I lost track. He still asked if I needed anything when he went to the store. still picked up the trash, still loaded the dishwasher. But there was no warmth in it, no thought, just routine. We'd become two people living next to each other rather than with each other. I stopped trying to fill the silence, started journaling instead. At night, while he scrolled his phone beside me, I wrote. Not about him, exactly, just about how it felt to be quiet, about how many things I didn't say anymore. How many small disappointments had folded into the corners of my day like creases in paper you never smooth out. I logged everything. The missed dinner, the necklace he never saw, the way he laughed at a memory that left me broken, the cake I ate alone, the kindness from our neighbor that made me lie. Each entry was short, precise. No embellishment. Just the truth, recorded so I wouldn't forget what silence can do when it accumulates. Riley didn't ask what I was writing. I don't think he noticed the notebook at all. He sat beside me, sometimes even leaned his shoulder against mine. And still, he didn't see me. Noah showed up on a Saturday afternoon, unannounced but not unwelcome. He and Riley weren't close, not really, more like brothers who shared a history but not a rhythm. Still, when he knocked on the door holding a six-pack and a lazy grin, Riley let him in like nothing was off. I watched them from the kitchen. Noah talked more than usual, told stories that wandered. I half-listened while tidying already clean counters. I didn't want to be pulled into their orbit, but I didn't want to leave either. Then, in the middle of a laugh, Noah said, "Remember when you wrote that dumb poem for Sophie's birthday? What were you, like 22? Riley smirked. It wasn't dumb. You were dramatic. Rented a cabin, cooked dinner, wrote a full poem. Who even does that? I went still. Noah chuckled and popped open another beer. She cried, right? I remember thinking you'd peaked as a boyfriend, like it was all downhill after that. Riley shrugged, grinning. I was trying. Just that. I was trying. I leaned against the sink and kept my face neutral. He had that in him, the effort, the thought. The willingness to make someone feel known, seen, celebrated. I hadn't gotten a poem. I hadn't even gotten a text. Later, when Noah left, Riley came into the kitchen, kissed my shoulder like he always did, and opened the fridge. No apology, no acknowledgement, just the routine. I looked at him then, really looked, and wondered. Was I just never the person he felt like trying for? The make-up dinner never happened. We had talked about it loosely, one of those half-promises wrapped in vague language. Let's do something soon, yeah? He'd said after I mentioned how busy his birthday week had been. I hadn't pressed. I wanted to see if he'd follow through on his own. He didn't. The night we'd circled on the calendar came and went. No reservation, no mention, no rain check. He got stuck at work, texted me at 8:13 p.m., insane day, you good if we just do takeout tomorrow? I replied, sure. Then I closed my phone, made myself pasta, and ate it on the couch with the TV off. Not because I was angry, but because I wasn't surprised. Not anymore. The shift had already happened. I was moving from hope to clarity. From maybe this will change to this is what it is. There was no scene, no argument. Just me realizing I was holding space for someone who didn't even realize a space had been made. I sat there in the dim light, remembering how I used to get excited about shared plans, how I'd text Jules pictures of outfits, how I'd look up menus, how I'd think about the way he used to look at me when we dressed up for each other. Now I was in sweatpants, hair tied back, eating dinner I didn't taste, feeling like a guest in a relationship I once helped build. It wasn't a missed dinner, it was a missed chance. And that stung more than anything he'd said out loud. Jules called it what I couldn't. We were in the office kitchen, standing by the microwave, waiting for lukewarm leftovers to become slightly warmer leftovers. I hadn't told her about the missed dinner, not in detail, but I didn't need to. She could read the dull in my eyes, the way my shoulders stayed raised just slightly, like I was always bracing. He forgets things, I said, like I was defending someone on trial for a crime I didn't report. Jules looked at me, not unkind, just steady. It's not just that he forgets you, she said. It's that he only sees you when you're bleeding. I blinked, what? You said he remembers every fight, every tear, every slammed door. But not your birthday, not the necklace, not the dinner. He remembers you when you're in pain, when you've already had to yell. I didn't respond, because it was true. Riley showed up best when things were breaking. when he was being pulled into a storm, when I was sobbing on the floor or shutting down mid-sentence. That's when he noticed. That's when he soothed. But joy, softness, stillness, he didn't register those. It hit me in a way I didn't know how to speak around. Being loved only in crisis isn't love. It's rescue, and I was tired of needing to drown just to be seen. He handed me the box like it was nothing. No announcement. No build-up. Just walked into the room, placed it on the coffee table between us, and said, "I've been meaning to give you this." That was it, no card, no bow, just a small, wrapped box, the kind you'd expect jewelry in. Square, neat. Plain brown paper folded with more care than I would have expected from him. I stared at it, not with excitement, with curiosity, the cautious kind. "You want me to open it now?" I asked. He nodded, sat back, watched. His face didn't give anything away, not smug, not soft, just quiet. Like he was holding his breath a little, waiting to see how I'd react. I peeled the paper slowly, lifted the lid. It wasn't jewelry. No earrings, no bracelet. No shiny apology disguised as sparkle, just a folded piece of paper, and a memory card. That's when my hands stilled. I looked up at him. He didn't speak, didn't smile. Just met my eyes in a way I hadn't seen in weeks, maybe months. A kind of stillness that felt almost honest. And that scared me more than anything he could have bought. The letter was handwritten. Folded twice, not neatly, like he'd crumpled it once and smoothed it back out. His handwriting was messier than usual, uneven, slanted, like he hadn't expected to be writing it at all. I unfolded it slowly. The first line stopped me. "I remembered your birthday." Not an apology, not a defense, just that. Then, I didn't forget, I knew the date. I saw it on the calendar. I even set a reminder on my phone. I kept reading. I didn't say anything because I didn't know how to say it without sounding fake. I didn't get you flowers or cake or a poem because I felt like I didn't deserve to do something nice for you. Not after the way things have felt lately. I didn't know how to celebrate you when I haven't shown up for you. My hands started shaking a little. It wasn't that I didn't care. It was that I felt like I wasn't allowed to act like a good partner when I hadn't been one. He wrote about the night I brought the cake home, how he'd seen the box in the trash later, how he'd guessed what it meant but couldn't bring himself to say anything, how the guilt hit, hard, and still he said nothing. "I've been afraid of how far away you are from me. And I know I helped put the distance there. I reached the end. This doesn't fix anything, but I needed to try. The memory card is something, maybe too much, maybe not enough. No love, Riley. No signature, just the words, naked. Raw, late, I sat there holding the paper like it might vanish if I blinked too hard. He didn't forget. He just didn't try. Until now. The memory card was tucked beneath the letter, small, black, unmarked. I turned it over in my hand a few times before sliding it into my laptop. There were no folders, just audio files, dozens of them, timestamps from the last 6 months, each labeled with a date, nothing else. I clicked the earliest one. A click, a pause, then his voice, low and uncertain. "I don't know what I'm doing with this. I can't talk to you right now, not like this. So I'm saying it here, to no one, to you, whatever." Silence then. "I miss how you looked at me before you started bracing for disappointment." I didn't expect it to hit that hard. The second recording, a few days later, you were laughing at something on your phone and I almost said, "God, I forgot how much I love that sound." But I didn't. I just sat there like an idiot. I clicked another, then another. Each one was just him, talking into the air, rambling, stumbling. Sometimes angry at himself, sometimes tired, sometimes gentle. Always circling around me, around what he hadn't said, hadn't done, hadn't shown. He talked about the dinner he missed, the necklace he saw and didn't comment on, the cake he found the next morning, and how he stared at it for too long before throwing it away. There was one where he cried, just quietly, a hitch in his breath, no words. I listened to that one twice. They weren't apologies, they weren't performances, they were proof that somewhere inside all that silence he had noticed. And he'd said everything, just not to me. When it ended, I closed the laptop gently. I didn't say anything, didn't look at him right away. Just sat with the weight of it, not the gesture, but the delay. He was sitting across from me, elbows on his knees, hands clasped like a man waiting for a verdict. There was something unfamiliar in his posture, not defensiveness, not arrogance, just stillness, maybe even readiness. I looked up. "Thank you," I said. He nodded once, didn't speak. But this doesn't erase the forgetting. Another nod, slower, he didn't argue, didn't try to explain. And that's how I knew he finally understood something. Not everything, not yet, but enough. Because before, he would have filled the silence, tried to paint over the cracks with sentiment, charm, distraction. Now he let it breathe. "I'm not angry," I added. "I know," he said quietly. "That's worse." He was right. What I felt wasn't rage, it wasn't bitterness. It was the kind of tired that comes from holding your breath too long and finally exhaling. This gift, the letter, the recordings, it wasn't redemption. It was a mirror. And what I saw was a man who felt deeply, but too late, and a woman who'd learned how to live without waiting anymore. I slept in the other room that night, not out of punishment, not out of some silent protest meant to make him squirm. I just needed space. Real space. Not the kind you ask for when you're avoiding something, but the kind you take when you're finally listening to yourself again. I brought my pillow, a blanket, and nothing else. Closed the door gently. No drama, no statement, just a choice. The room was smaller, quieter. It used to be a guest room, mostly storage now. But in that moment, it felt like neutral ground. A place where my body could rest without holding shape for someone else. I lay on the bed and stared at the ceiling. Thought about the voice recordings, the late birthday, the letter, all of it. And still, the loudest feeling wasn't pain. It was clarity. For so long, I had been waiting for effort, for intention, for him to meet me where I was instead of dragging me toward where he felt safest. He finally tried. And that meant something, but it didn't erase the nights I spent wondering if I mattered. I slept light, but I slept. And when the sun crept in through the blinds the next morning, I didn't feel like someone who had given up. I felt like someone who had remembered herself. He was already in the kitchen when I woke up. Making coffee, moving quietly, like he didn't know how much noise he was allowed to make yet. I walked in, still wearing the clothes I'd slept in. He looked up, didn't smile but didn't flinch either. "You sleep okay?" he asked. I nodded. "You." He nodded back. There was a pause, not tense, just careful. Like we were both stepping into something unmarked. He poured 2 mugs, handed me one, I took it. Then he said, "Can we talk?" I didn't answer right away. Just sat down, cupped the mug in both hands, let the warmth settle before the words did. He pulled out the chair across from me. "I know I've missed a lot," he started. "Not just the big things, the small ones, the ones that make up a relationship, I guess." I waited. I thought effort meant showing up in crisis. Being there when things got bad. I didn't realize you needed me to see you when things were good, too. Or when they were just regular. I kept my eyes on the rim of the mug. After a moment, I said, "You remember everything I got wrong." He didn't respond. I looked up at him. "But if this is the first time you've tried to remember me, it's a start." He nodded, eyes tired but clear, not fixed, not forgiven, but maybe, finally, listening. Jules didn't ask for an update. She just handed me a coffee on Monday morning, raised an eyebrow, and waited for whatever I was willing to give. I sat on the edge of her desk and exhaled. "He gave me something," I said. "Flowers." "No, a letter, a memory card, voice recordings." Her face didn't change, she just nodded once. "That's unexpected." I nodded back. "Yeah." She sipped her coffee, let the silence stretch just long enough to give me room. I broke it. "He remembered me when I stopped asking him to." Jules didn't say anything at first, just tilted her head, studying me like she wasn't sure if I sounded proud or heartbroken. Then she smiled, small, soft, knowing. "That sounds like the beginning of a boundary," she said. I smiled back. "Feels like one." We didn't say much after that. There was nothing else that needed saying, because that was the shift, not what Riley had done, but what I'd stopped doing. No more chasing. No more hinting. No more shrinking to make room for someone else's timing. It was never about making him love me better. It was about finally deciding I deserved to be remembered without having to disappear first. I passed the florist without meaning to stop. It was a Thursday, warm, the kind of day that makes you want to walk a little slower, let the sun sit on your shoulders. I had no plans, no errands that couldn't wait. The flowers caught my eye not because they were flashy, but because they looked exactly like the ones I'd imagined someone might give me. Months ago, Maybe years. Soft pink. A little wild around the edges, wrapped in brown paper with twine. No tag, no occasion, no apology attached. I walked in. The woman behind the counter smiled, didn't ask what they were for. I liked that. I liked that she didn't assume I was picking them up for someone else. Or that someone else had sent them for me. I paid, walked out with the bouquet tucked under my arm. No one was waiting at home. No dinner planned, no grand gesture following it. Just the quiet act of choosing something beautiful because I wanted it, because I could. At home, I trimmed the stems, put them in the vase we never used, set them on the table. Riley noticed when he walked in. "Who are those from?" I looked up. Me. He didn't say anything, just nodded. Slowly, and that was enough, because I wasn't trying to prove a point. I was just done waiting. Done hoping someone else would remember what I now knew for sure. I am worth celebrating, even if I'm the only one doing it. Thank you for watching. Please do not forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. I love you all.